In the standard logic of competition, the stranger is often viewed as a threat or an outsider to be managed. However, the logic of the outsider suggests that empathy is actually the most aggressive growth strategy available. When you move beyond your own cultural or social borders and treat a stranger as a potential ally, you unlock access to hidden markets and unconventional ideas that your competitors cannot see. This cross-border empathy acts as a key to a locked room. By taking the time to understand the internal code of someone completely different from you, you gain the ability to operate in their world with the authority of a local. This isn't about being nice, it is a calculated expansion of your influence. Most people remain trapped in their own echo chambers, surrounded by the same thoughts and the same people. The master of the stranger law realizes that the greatest opportunities usually lie just outside their current circle. By proactively bridging the gap through genuine understanding and shared value, you transform a potential adversary into a strategic partner. In a globalized world, the person who can speak the language of the other is the one who ultimately holds the most power. We often mistake networking for simple conversation, but social capital is a precise mathematical formula of trust. Think of it as a human line of credit. Every time you provide value, keep a promise, or help someone without asking for an immediate return, you are making a deposit into a reservoir of trust. These small, consistent acts of value exchange compound over time, creating an invisible balance that stays with you wherever you go. Social capital is the only currency that doesn't devalue during an economic crisis. In fact, its value usually increases when traditional systems fail. When you eventually need a door opened, whether it's for a land deal, a new business partnership, or a career shift, the result isn't luck. It is a strategic withdrawal from a balance you have spent years building. The logic here is clear. Those who wait until they need a favor to start networking will always find their account empty. True influence is built by the person who understands that every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen the network. You don't build social capital when you need it, you build it so that when you need it, it is already there, ready to be deployed with a single phone call. Beneath our modern exterior lies the lizard brain, the amygdala and brainstem, which is programmed for one thing: survival. Most people live and react from this primal state, driven by fear, tribalism, and the urge to flee from anything unfamiliar. When you see lizard people as a metaphor, it represents humans who have surrendered their higher logic to these base instincts. To be a master communicator, you must realize that you are always speaking to two audiences at once. If your message triggers a person's lizard brain by sounding threatening or overly complex, they will shut down and stop listening, regardless of how good your facts are. The logic of influence requires you to first quiet the lizard. You do this by establishing safety, using familiar language, and reducing perceived risk. Once the primal alarms are silenced, you can then speak to the higher logic, the neocortex, where reason and long-term planning reside. True influence is the ability to bypass the gatekeeper of fear and engage the partner of logic. By understanding this biological hierarchy, you stop fighting against human nature and start working with it. You don't convince people by winning an argument, you convince them by making them feel safe enough to agree with you. The paradox of value asks why a diamond, which is a luxury, costs so much more than water, which is essential for life. The answer lies in the architecture of value. Most people struggle in business because they focus entirely on utility value, what a product actually does. But real wealth is generated in the realms of scarcity value and perceived value. Water is cheap because it is abundant. Diamonds are expensive because they are scarce and represent status. To move from a basic income to high-level wealth, you must stop selling commodities and start selling the logic of the solution, or the logic of status. Understanding this framework allows you to re-engineer how you present your work. If you sell video editing, you are selling a utility with many competitors. If you sell the logic of narrative influence for global brands, you have shifted into a higher tier of the architecture. You are no longer selling an hour of your time. You are selling a transformation of the client's perceived value. In any economy, the highest rewards go to those who can bridge the gap between what a thing is and what it means to the person buying it. Value is not a fixed number, it is a structure you build in the mind of your audience. In the physical universe, stars and planets only account for a fraction of the mass. The rest is dark matter, the invisible force that keeps everything from flying apart. Power operates by the same principle. While the world focuses on the visible leaders, the CEOs and politicians, true systemic control often lies with the silent players. These are the advisors, the makers of unwritten rules, and the architects of cultural norms who operate behind the scenes. This invisible network is the dark matter of power. It dictates which ideas get funded, which laws are passed, and which people are allowed into the inner circles. The logic of the silent player is to hold influence without the liability of the spotlight. In geopolitics and high-level business, the visible leader is often just the mask for a much larger invisible machine. If you only study what is public, you are only seeing 5% of the reality. To master this level of influence, you must learn to navigate the unwritten rules of the room and build connections with the people who control the flow of information. The most durable power isn't the one that shouts, it's the one that quietly shapes the environment in which others must live. In the digital age, reality is no longer a collection of facts, it is a competition between narratives. Every brand, country, and person is governed by a narrative algorithm, a set of stories that people believe to be true about them. If you do not actively write your own algorithm, others, competitors, critics, or the general public will write it for you. This is the logic of frame control. Whoever defines the story, defines the reality for everyone else. If you control the frame, you control what people see, how they feel, and how they react to the facts. This is why storytelling is not a soft skill. It is a hard strategic asset. Based on your work in video content, you know that the edit is where the truth is made. By choosing which details to highlight and which to cut, you create a logic that the audience follows subconsciously. Frame control means setting the terms of the debate so that you've already won before the argument even starts. Whether you are building a social media presence or a multi-million-dollar business, your first job is to ensure your narrative algorithm is strong enough to resist the edits of your enemies. Every transaction in the world of trade involves more than just money or services. It involves an invisible exchange of souls. The logic of the soul suggests that every time you compromise your integrity to close a deal or sacrifice your values for social capital, you are paying with a non-renewable currency. Many achieve the pinnacle of wealth and influence, only to realize they have traded away the very core code that gave their life meaning. The ultimate challenge is not just winning the game of trade, but winning it while keeping your essence intact. To maintain your soul in a world of trade, you must treat your integrity as a fixed cost, not a variable expense. In any high-level exchange, there is a break-even point, where the gain in power no longer justifies the loss of self. Mastering this logic means knowing when to walk away from a successful deal that requires a soul tax. True long-term success belongs to those who build an empire that serves as an extension of their spirit rather than a cage for it. By protecting your internal code, you ensure that when you finally reach the top, the person standing there is still someone you recognize.